This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey guys, Jay here, welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 125. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and wargame experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week, how could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, I got a little bit of painting done, I actually did a little bit of organization, and Kill Team dropped a new balanced data sheet. But first, website design is all about getting the right squares in the right spaces, and that can be easier said than done. But luckily, today's sponsor Squarespace is here to make it simple. Squarespace makes it easy and fun to dive headfirst into website design with simple to use features and professional support from start to finish. Start by looking through one of their dozens of templates on offer and see which one resonates with you. Or create your own using the next-gen Fluid Engine Designer. Every detail customizable to fit your website needs. Dragging and dropping allows you to create the website that you envision. Squarespace also provides a fast solution for creating a storefront online, whether your products are physical, digital, or service-based. Now, selling your custom merch is easier than ever with Squarespace. Squarespace offers a free trial for you to dip your feet into and test the waters, and when you're ready to dive in head first, you can go to squarespace.com/EonsOfBattle or follow the link in the description below to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Getting into the juicy Kill Team news, I am very excited that Games Workshop seems to have been listening to me specifically with some of the changes to the Falgoravagers, and by me, I mean pretty much everybody saw it coming because the beasts were way too good. I really like the Beastmen Kill Team. They're so fun and ultra aggressive. Super fun to play on the tabletop, but probably a little on the really broken side. The most important and unique thing to the Beastmen is their Frenzy token ability, where whenever one of your guys dies, they're not actually removed from the battlefield, but instead they're left on the battlefield with a Frenzy token, a little bit of very minor buffs, but they stick around until the end of their next activation. Sometimes, like Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, this is called like their Oath of Moments, where you actually have to spend a command point to make this happen, but for the Beastmen, it just happens across the board, which is ultra powerful, but I don't think it's necessarily broken because the Beastmen have no shooting really of any kind. They're not plasma gunning things off the board. They're not melta-gunning guys into the ground. They can only punch in close combat, and that means they actually have to get there, and Kill Team is such an incredibly lethal game that it is actually really challenging to get into close combat. So I really like the Frenzy mechanic, but it was definitely too good because previously a frenzied model could never be shot to death. It's just impossible. You could las cannon a Beastmen standing on an objective, and he could just stand there until his next activation, just tanking any amount of damage. So they have since fixed it. Incapacitating a Falgoravager operative with a Frenzy token, add the following bullet point: critical damage is inflicted on it in a shooting attack. The wording of it isn't phenomenal, but what they're getting at, I think, is that if you kill a Beastmen and then they obtain a Frenzy token, if you deal another critical damage to them, they are removed from play. I think that's a solid idea. I almost, like, when I was first playing the Beast Scores, I just assumed that is how it worked because it seemed so crazy that they were completely and utterly immune to gunfire. And it's still a hugely powerful ability because all of the previous overspill damage of the last shot that killed it is gone, and you have to waste another operative shooting at the Beastmen to actually finish it off. It's still an incredibly powerful ability, even if it can be shot to death. And it gives some teams like the Tau Pathfinders and stuff an actual chance. Although the Tau Pathfinder actually a pretty decent matchup against the Beastmen, unless the Beastmen get into close combat, in which case you might as well end the game right there because it's gonna be a bloodbath. And the other change is also a very obvious change, and that is that when a Falgoravager has a Frenzy token, it is ignored for holding objectives. That's super completely reasonable because before it would be a bunch of essentially dead Ravagers on objectives controlling everything because it's not until the end of your next activation, which could happen in the following turn. So definitely a necessary change. And basically that's how I've been playing them currently. So it's good to see that those changes are now official, and I still think it's gonna be a really fun kill team. But speaking of kill teams that are maybe a little bit less fun, the Hearthkin Pioneers. Upon an initial reading of their rules, they were a really fun blend of Sisters Novitiates, Tau Pathfinders, and Guard, where they have a little bit of everything. The big giant problem with them is their 4-inch movement meant that they just can't do much of anything at all. They don't have the movement. Some armies can kind of get around this, like the Death Guard with their 5-up Feel No Pain. They're incredibly slow and it's hard to make them do things, but it feels very fun and flavorful. It's a small model kill team and a very elite kill team. And so it feels okay that they have to spend a little bit of extra time getting where they need to go because they'll actually survive getting there. Hearthkin Pioneers are actually pretty darn squishy, so they have had 1 inch of movement added to their normal movement characteristic, which is actually very interesting. We don't have anything else in the game that has a natural movement characteristic of 5 inches. The only other thing that really has any movement shenanigans is the Farstalker Kinban's Kroot Hounds have a natural movement of 8 inches, which was actually in the original Kill Team indexes that came out when the game launched. They weren't the Farstalker Kinban back then, they were just the Kadra Mercenaries. And the Kadra Mercenaries. I have played so many games with the Kadra Mercenaries. They're garbage. They're complete garbage, but they have some of the most interesting rules out of the original index. They have things that are now staples in Kill Team. They had chain activation shenanigans. They had all of this great stuff, extra movement, the furthest movement in the entire game, and they still have the furthest movement in the entire game, but just no ability whatsoever to deal any sort of damage in close combat or in shooting. So I would like to play the Farstalker Kinban. Nick has them, and he's currently putting them together, but it does seem like a really, really fun kill team. But yeah, Hearthkin Pioneers, 5-inch natural movement, probably will help an awful lot. The other thing they gave them, which I think is a good give, but they probably should have been a little bit more generous. But Eye of the Ancestors ability, once in each strategy phase, when you would use a strategic ploy or pass, you can select 1 enemy operative to gain a grudge token instead, or 2 enemy operatives if 3 or more friendly Hearthkin Salvager operatives are incapacitated. I think that's really good, and it'll give a lot more opportunities to hand out the grudge tokens, which tons and tons of kill teams have these sort of token abilities, the Dark Eldar, the Sisters Novitiates, but I think that that's going to be a huge buff. I do like that if you're extra losing, you get to add 2 to really help out, and it does make a lot of sense because the whole idea of the Hearthkin Pioneers and their grudges is that they will if you slight a dwarf, you have signed your own death warrant. They will stop at absolutely nothing until you are wiped from the face of the galaxy because the dwarves hold grudges. And so getting a lot more grudge tokens out there, I think, is a really, really solid move. As of late, Kill Team has felt a little dead from Games Workshop because they've been so focused on Warhammer 40k 10th edition and I guess this new epic thing they've got going on with 30k. That's a little bit lame because it's only 30k. Kill Team has kind of taken a back seat. I really am excited for the next season of Kill Team, which is coming out later this year. It'll be really interesting to see exactly what they do. Also, a big reason of why I'm not feeling Kill Team right now is because I didn't get the box. I didn't get the latest box because my pre-order was actually canceled because Games Workshop only made about 11 boxes of the previous thing. It's kind of been a trend for Kill Team, unfortunately, all season 2, where they just did not make very many of these boxes. Luckily, most of the Kill Teams are now available separately in just single boxes, so you can just buy the one you want. But yeah, the Chaos Cults and the Inquisitorial Agents are very interesting kill teams that Games Workshop just kind of pulled out of thin air. And the Chaos Cults kill team was absolutely wrecking. One of the biggest problems was their natural 5-up Feel No Pain, which I just praised the 5-up Feel No Pain on Death Guard because I think it really fits for an elite kill team. 5-up Feel No Pain on a Swarm kill team is way too good, and it's been changed to a 6-up. And I think a 6-up is a lovely compromise. 5-up Feel No Pain can make things feel punishingly tanky because you can kind of count on it. 6-up Feel No Pain is just a fun, flavorful rule of, well, let's try to get some 6s. You did 20 damage to me, so I get to roll 20 dice, and I hope I get 5 of these have to be 6s or else I die right now. Like, those sorts of moments I think are really, really fun. 5-up Feel No Pain, yeah, probably way too good. I think in previous times of Kill Team, maybe like in Kill Team Season 1, the Chaos Cults and the Inquisitorial Agents probably would have just been White Dwarf kill teams instead of their own separate box with a separate book. I kind of prefer the White Dwarf kill teams. One of my favorite kill teams of all time, the Adeptus Mechanicus kill team. The Hunter Clade kill team is tons and tons of fun. I've played it a bunch of times and I have proxy models that I've been using, but I've been slowly but surely kit bashing and converting all of my Adeptus Mechanicus minis into the perfect kill team. A kind of a little bit of a Fallout inspired kill team, but I'm really excited to get the actual models on the tabletop and really get some games in with them. But yeah, the Cult and the Inquisitorial Agent is kind of a weird kill team in that not many people got the chance to buy it. The rules are now just out there in the world and you can just order the kits that make up these kill teams. They're also kind of frustratingly giant kill teams with so many different units available to them. So you're kind of grabbing from many, many different boxes. So your little kill team that usually costs around $60 is all of a sudden like you need a grab bag of multiple $60 kits, and people who already play Chaos or Imperial armies probably already have just the stuff laying around from their Warhammer teams. It's kind of like how just about everybody has enough Space Marines to put together a Space Marine kill team. But yeah, the Chaos Cult and Inquisitorial Agents kill teams are odd. I am really excited for Kill Team Season 3. I have absolutely no guess as to what they'll do. Into the Dark was tons of fun and completely changed up Kill Team with everything taking place in these narrow maze-like corridors. I would assume they're gonna go back to a little bit more of an open board so that things are a little bit more of a match in terms of like Kill Team and Warhammer 40,000. That would be my guess. I think the big problem with open board is Vantage Point. I think Vantage Point kind of ruins the game a little bit. In Kill Team, shooting is punishingly powerful, and I think one of the genius mechanics of Kill Team is the conceal versus engage order. Every time you activate one of your models, you have to decide if they're going to be sneaking around, not getting into close combat, not shooting, but keeping themselves nice and safe, hunkering down behind cover, or do you want them engaged, just sprinting, running, charging, and shooting? I think that is a excellent mechanic. It makes things a lot more survivable, and it makes the game actually feel really good. Vantage Point turns that off. If a model is just standing 3 inches tall, which is all the terrain in the game, then they can just shoot anybody as if they have a conceal order. It's treated as having an engage order. I don't like it at all. It works, it does work. Kill Team is a fine game that functions just fine, but I would love, we often play Kill Team. Almost always when we play on open boards with no vantage, and the game works great. You actually use all the mechanics in the game. You can count on being in a conceal order. You can actually be safe running around. I don't like Vantage Point. And so if the Games Workshop wanted to make me really happy with Season 3, open board with no vantage, because the fun thing about open board is you can use all the terrain for all of your games. I'll use the Shatterpoint terrain, I don't care, and just make these cool looking maps that are all unique. Because the Into the Dark terrain, as much fun as that game system is, it's always the same. It's the same bulkheads, the same shapes, the same maze-like corridors. It makes the game feel a little bit samey, where the open board, you can kind of get a little bit more creative with it. And we here at EonsOfBattle, we love terrain. While I'm still impatiently waiting for some more Kill Team news, Games Workshop did come out with some new miniatures for Age of Sigmar. And although they're not that interesting in Age of Sigmar, they're kind of getting me excited as maybe some fodder for conversions. The Black Talons strike out into the Age of Sigmar with precision and ferocity. 4 unique Stormcast heroes, and 1 Idoneth Deepkin, which I kind of love-hate the Idoneth Deepkin. I think that their lore is amazing, and I think that their models look like fish tank decorations. The Stormcasts are just super solid. I really like the new Thunderstrike style armor, which is a little bit more fitted and a little bit more plain, where the original Stormcast, when Age of Sigmar first came out, are just these gigantic hunks with a billion medals and tassels and banners hanging off of every single part of them. Now they look much simpler, and I actually think they look a lot more heroic and powerful without all of that junk. And they tone down the hammers a lot. The old Stormcast are so hammer heavy. Everything is just hammers all day, every day. Every single one is a Thor cosplayer. It was a little bit ridiculous. Now you just get the occasional hammer, and the hammers are much smaller and more subtle. I like them a lot. These 4 characters, I think could make for some really, really interesting Space Marines. They're just about the right size. There used to be, well, there still is a faction of Space Marines, the Minotaurs chapter. I've always wanted to see somebody do Minotaurs, kit a super heavily converted Minotaurs army for 40k, using a lot of the Stormcast Eternal parts. The Minotaurs are very kind of Greco-Roman, they're brass-colored armor. They have some really, really interesting stuff going on. I would love to see something like that. And that's immediately what my head jumped to when I saw these miniatures for the first time. Because, like, yeah, they're Stormcast and they look great in a Stormcast army, but they could be made into some really, really interesting stuff. Particularly, another thing that really jumped out to me was the Ideneth Deepkin Mage. I already have 3 Magoses for the Genestealer cults, which is way more than you would ever need. But maybe I could use a 4th? I think these guys will probably be available in a set. The article doesn't really get into how these miniatures will be released, just that they are here and they are also in some of the animated shows on Warhammer TV. I've got to be honest, haven't been keeping up with the animated shows. They just come out so infrequently. Eventually, I'll probably spend like a weekend just watching everything. But the Ideneth Deepkin lady could make a really, really cool Genestealer Magus. Also, I've had Genestealer Cult just on the brain because I've just been thinking of what I want to do with that army because something needs to happen with it. And I think maybe I'll use that as my opportunity to do some really, really big conversions. Because for like my Black Templar and my Tyranids and probably my Necrons are like the 3 armies that I'm really playing right now. I'm just cranking out models, getting them ready for the tabletop. But I think my Genestealer Cult and maybe even the Grey Knights that I have in a box over there, I might want to take my time with them and really, really kit bash, convert, do some really, really fun things with the painting of those. They're almost like my boutique army instead of my daily driver army is my Black Templar, but the old rusted army that's kind of sitting in the garage with a tarp over it that every couple of weekends I'll uncover and, I'll do an oil change or get the brakes fixed up. That's the sort of army that my Genestealer Cult is. It's just the old man tinkering army. And I think some of these models could actually be really, really fun additions to that army. I think my big problem with the Genestealer Cult is that they're all just minors, when in reality the Genestealer Cult are civilians who have been secretly behind the scenes, covertly training to take over the entire world. And so I think these models could almost stand in as aberrants. Like if the Genestealer Cult could somehow get the noblest and best soldiers and generals of the planet into their fold, those guys would probably become something like an aberrant, something that's really, really powerful, a heavy hitting vanguard unit for the cult. Also, one of these gals has a bird, and that's just fun. But speaking of things that are really fun, I actually got a decent amount of painting done this week. I got some B2 Super Battle Droids finished. Pretty much the simplest paint job I've ever done. It's just lead belcher and a wash. But I also finished the 212th clones Commander Cody's Legion for Star Wars Shatterpoints. Kind of my goal when Shatterpoint was announced was to paint every single model for Shatterpoints, and I am well on my way. There's only 2 boxes that I don't have painted, and the weird diorama with Old Man Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader, which is kind of a weird addition to the game. They've been doing stuff like that for Star Wars Legion, so I guess they've been trying it for Star Wars Shatterpoint as well. But just make the boxes that come the way the game is meant to be played. Like, I don't want to swap in Old Man Obi-Wan for, I guess, regular Clone Wars Obi-Wan. But the Star Wars Shatterpoint minis, I'm really enjoying. The different scale changes the way I would actually paint these guys, and it lets me do certain things that I wouldn't be able to do on my Star Wars Legion miniatures. Like, these clones are just a null oil wash, pretty much. And then, picking out the orange parts of the armor and doing a little bit of sponging. But a black wash on Star Wars Legion minis makes them look so dark. But on these big old 40mm minis, it looks really, really good. I love painting different types of models because it gives me new challenges and I end up learning a ton. But Star Wars Shatterpoint, a game that I'm not necessarily in love with from an actual game perspective. It does feel a little bit more like a board game than a battle sim, Although it is getting me really energized to play a lot more Star Wars Legion, because Star Wars Legion is just Star Wars Warhammer 40,000 with much better rules, and I really, really love it. And it definitely helps that Star Wars Shatterpoint is very, very Clone Wars focused, and for Star Wars Legion, although Star Wars Legion also has Clone Wars, I've been focusing on the classic trilogy. I have a massive Rebel army, and I am slowly making some decent progress on my Imperial army. So I've kind of got every different era of Star Wars like on the shelf ready to go. I've got Shatterpoint for my Clone Wars. I've got Legion for my classic trilogy. Now they just need to make something for the sequels, because I do enjoy the sequels, although they probably won't make their way to Star Wars Legion just because the First Order and the Resistance are really, really, really close to the Rebels and the Empire. But I definitely wouldn't say no to a Rey, Kylo, Finn, and Poe, like individual characters that can be added. Heck, throw a Rose in there. I'll take a Rose, Tico. I don't care. I'd paint her right up. Good old Star Wars. Really though, more exciting than actually getting a bunch of models finished, I got a box. This is a Sterilite double stack box, and it perfectly holds all of Shatterpoint. And there's plenty of room to expand, and it just jimmies my jams. It flims my flams that this right here is all of Shatterpoint. I have so many games and so many models, and they're all scattered to the four winds of my house. I don't know where anything is, but if someone's like, hey, you want to play Shatterpoint? Boom, one box, ready to rock and roll. I have a lovely little jewelry case that holds all of the necessary dice and tokens. I have an organized little trapper full of all of the cards for the game. I mean, look at how organized this is. Everything squirrels away perfectly into this one box, and it's incredibly satisfying. I actually bought another one of these for another game I really like, Mantix Armada, and unfortunately those models are actually too big to physically fit in one of these, so I'm gonna have to find a different type of container for that game. But moving forward, I'm actually gonna try to get a little bit organized so that these games are easier to play, because often on our game nights, we'll get into a situation we'll finish a game of Kill Team or a game of Warhammer 40,000. It's like, all right, let's play something else. Let's play Mantix Armada. And then I have to think, I think some of the ships are in the painting room. I think some of the ships are in my room. I'm not exactly sure where the dice are. And I can't find the Poseidon Realms cards. And then we just don't end up playing it. But if everything was lovely and organized and all stored in nice totes, then we could just play every game under the sun. That's my goal moving forward. Leave a comment below if you guys have some really nifty things like this. I would love something for Kill Team. Warhammer 40,000 is just gonna be a mess. There's no way to make that work. But for Mantix Dead Zone or for Relic Blade, there's definitely ways. There's definitely ways like this to keep everything super nice, and I would love to hear about it. This little box of Shatterpoint is basically the only thing in my life right now that's put together, and it really, really makes me happy. I think the only thing that makes me happier is our Patreon. Over there, we have new terrain every single month, and this month we have the Corpse Starch Factory, a battle board dedicated to the canning of delicious, delicious human flesh. We also make extra episodes of Eons of Battle, and we have a tier where you can get your name on one of my Black Templar Space Marines, and you can join the crusade and help me defeat Sean in my games of Warhammer 40k 10th edition. Super fun week of wargaming, and in terms of Kill Team, I have no idea what's coming, but if I had to guess, I'm gonna say it's Space Marine Scouts versus, well, it's probably not gonna be Gene Stealers. I'm gonna say Gene Stealers. Scouts versus Gene Stealers. It's gonna be like that old Games Workshop game, Lost Patrol. Does anybody remember Lost Patrol? It's kind of fun. Go Google Lost Patrol. Thanks for watching.